Cool, so let's get it going today. I'm excited for today's call. We are really gonna tap into a little bit of therapy into these, which I do these every so often, and it's something that is part of the journey. So I'm really, really excited for today's call. But before we get into it, let's start off with some wins. So in the chat, any win that you had in the past 7 days? Did you hit a PR? Did you meal prep excellently? Did personal life, professional life, any type of win? There is no win that is too small. What is my win? Oh, yesterday I just hired a new business mentor. So I'm really excited for that. I had one for about 4 years and I haven't had one in the past year, and I just found another one. And I'm going to an event in Houston, like a huge, basically fitness, all the people that do what I do, and I'm really excited for that. It was a very scary, big move, but obviously, like, I encourage you guys to do that, so I have to do it myself. Let's see, back squat, 8 times 170. Woo! Okay, that is sick. 8 is insane. Hip thrust PR, 400 pounds, casual. Okay, lovely. Evenly distributing protein, and my stomach feels awesome. Love it. Made it to all my workouts while having a very stressful week at work. Amazing. Those weeks will come. Today, I promise you, I woke up. I slept like shit. I fell asleep late. And I was just like, do I want to go? Do I want to go Saturday? And I was like, I don't want to go Saturday. I'm just gonna go today. It was one of those moments where like, let's just do it. And it felt much better getting into that. Got back to workouts early in the morning. Oh, those are the best. There's nothing better than getting the workout out of the way. Cool, so we can get going today. Where is the call? If you have anything else that you would like to put in the chat, go ahead and I will share my screen. Cool. So today, again, a little bit of some therapy talk. But honestly, something I feel like a lot of, and you probably felt this yourself as well, a lot of times, like during this transformation journey, we find that it is a whole lot more mental than it is physical. And sometimes there can be, well, obviously, there always is these external voices that come into play in your fitness journey. And in some cases, they can try to sway us in the wrong directions. In some cases, they make us not feel so good. So today, what we are talking about is finding peace with trigger comments. We'll get to that in a little bit. So today we're going to talk about what is a trigger comment, why does it happen, what is really happening, and how to respond. Basically, we are finding a way out of this trigger, that like little emotional feeling. So the concept of being triggered is to respond with intense fear, anger, and emotion to a situation in the here and now. Right? So we recognize in the current time a situation from memory that feels damaging and dangerous, right? So in this case, this triggers tell us about the things that we were once afraid of. And when we relate it to our fitness journey, it can maybe be things like, at one point we were overweight. At one point we were feeling powerless. We were feeling left out. We were made fun of. We were not good enough. We were not chosen. This is actually like, even like if we relate it back to like gym class where maybe we weren't the most athletic girl and we were just chosen last, right? These are things that can still come up. Parents talking about a million trauma things that they have around diet culture, right? All of these things can trigger us. And it's very important that we start to recognize these things, unlearn, and then rewrite. This is, okay. Sometimes we don't even know what the true trigger is. So growing up, were you mostly given compliments about the way that you look? I actually realized this years later that most of the comments were about like being pretty or being strong or like, everything was very like physical, right? It wasn't really anything else. Did your parents give more attention to one sibling? Were you picked last in gym class? Did you have a life change? Did you have a bad breakup? And for this, it's really up to you to investigate that, because that story is going to look different for everybody. And even with like my therapist right now, she will ask me questions about things that I have to ask my mom because I just don't know the answers to. She's like, in your first couple years, like when you cried, did you cry often? And how quickly were your parents to respond to that? All of that starts to reframe and starts to set the foundation from the things that we still feel and get triggered by and still believe now. So what can trigger us? Anything that has to do with our bodies, the way that we eat, or the way that we choose to prioritize our time. Like, you lost weight, you look healthier, make sure that you don't get too bulky. Oh my gosh, you're gonna eat all of that? That's way too unhealthy for her, she can't have the cookie. And that's the same one, I'm gonna put this slower. You don't have to change, right? Encouraging you, and I've honestly worked with a lot of different women that try to make change, but in the family household, they try to keep her away from change. You're doing too much, you have to try harder, you look like you gained some happy weight, and all of these things that people are telling us can trigger us. And it doesn't even really have to be just about us, because it can be about that person. So I lost weight. Right, I need to lose 5 pounds. I'm so fat, I shouldn't have eaten that, I can't eat that, I'm starting like the million diets that are out there. I'm gonna order a salad because I'm on a diet, I can't have carbs, I don't wanna get too bulky, I'm full, I'm gonna take the rest to go. Like all of these things, even though that they're not about us, they have absolutely nothing to do with us. Just by you being out to dinner and wanting to finish your meal, where your friend is maybe like, I'm full, I'm gonna take this to go, we can start to think like, damn, should I not finish my plate? I was actually gonna finish it, I'm hungry, right? Or somebody says something about the way that they're eating, and then we kind of think about all of these things. If they're talking about their weight, we kind of relate it to us. So the cure for triggering is love. Understanding that it is not black and white, it is gray, and we have to accept our gray regardless of the way that you spell it. And it's gonna be very, very important to rewrite our story. The reality is that social media, the way that we were brought up, education systems, our family dynamic, all of this puts a lot of pressure on us. It's kind of like that pressure that we talk about. We don't have to always live in hustle culture, and we can be peaceful, we can be productive, we can do less but better, right? We were constantly pushed all this hustle, hustle, hustle. The same thing is happening with the results that we're getting. And you might scroll on social media and feel like you've made all of this progress and it's still not good enough, right? You've gained like 5 pounds of muscle, your arms are looking sick, and still, no, I have to actually fix this. Or you've lost 10, 15 pounds, no, I actually have to like get here or I'm still not gonna be happy, right? You're changing your ways and still it's not good enough. You're taking care of yourself and still it's not good enough. And this is coming from the triggers, the external factors, the things that we're consuming on social media, the things that our parents are saying that to us, literally everything. And it is time for us to start to break those ties. If we really want to step into that highest version of ourselves, to trust in ourselves, to trust in our journeys, to trust what we're doing on a day-to-day, putting in our bodies, all of that, we have to start to break these ties. If not, great, you lost 15 pounds, and then we feel and we self-sabotage, and then we go in the opposite direction, right? There's no turning back from here, and if you allow it, really progress is just gonna be endless. So we need to understand that others don't have to understand you or agree with you, right? You also don't have to agree with them, regardless of the way that they want to prioritize their time or the things that they want to eat, right? The comments doesn't hurt us, it's the meaning that we attach to it. So it's actually really interesting to hear like, hey, Nicole, like I got this comment on like me losing weight or like that I looked great. And I don't know why, it just felt like a lot of pressure. Like it felt like, it kind of made me feel like, what did the person think of me before, right? So if it's what we want or not, let's say you lost weight, we start to think like, damn, like how did I look before? Was I fat before? XYZ. So like, even if it's a good thing, it can still start to trigger us. You believe what they say, but if you don't believe it, it won't affect you. So if somebody's trying to pressure you to go out and they're telling you, oh, you're so boring, like just come out, just have fun, aka like my mom all the time, because she goes out way more than me, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go home. If you believe that you're boring, then you 100% are. But if you believe that you have other goals and that you prioritize your time differently, that sets you from feeling like you're boring to really feeling like you're in a position of power to always put yourself first, right? The person that tells you that you're eating too much or you're eating too little. There's really, with this, I found that you can never win. You're eating too much or you're eating too little. You're not eating this or you're eating too much of that. There's always something. If you believe it and you let yourself think that even if it's in your plan, no, it's still not good enough, right? That is what becomes our reality. Carbs are bad, right? Or like, I'm surprised you're allowed to eat that. If you believe it, then it is true. But if we continue to remind ourselves that it is not true, it no longer has that effect on us. And maybe in the past, we thought all of this stuff was true. Maybe in the past, we thought 1,300 calories was good for us, but that is no longer the reality that we are living in. So it's time to rewrite our story. And one, remember what you are doing. So when you get these trigger comments, let's say you went on a family vacation and everybody is just talking their shit. They always have something to say about what you do or what you look like. Remember what you are doing and remind yourself of that. What phase are you in? Oh my gosh, little, you're being so boring. You can't have some cake. And you're like, oh, I'm in a calorie deficit. It's really not that deep. I just don't want to use my calories right now. Eventually, all of that stuff is gonna come back. You're gonna have the cake, you're gonna have the glass of wine, you're gonna have the cookie, you're gonna have the pizza. But right now, it's really not something that's in my goals. So rewrite that because you're not being restrictive, you're not being boring, you're not being all of the things, you're just in a phase right now, right? Why are you doing what you are doing? This is something that we always have to remind ourselves of. All of these comments about literally everything. Why are you doing what you are doing? This is actually a conversation that I had today. I was talking to Emily, I think she's on the call right now, but it was like being a little bit like off track for a time that we were maybe like a little bit more flexibility. How can I get back on track? How can I get back on track? Bringing back that why. Like, why do you even want to do this? You don't have to. Why are you doing this and why is this so important for you to make this change and how is it going to make you feel? Remind yourself of that. What have you accomplished from point A that you started to where you are right now? What are all of the amazing things that you have accomplished? And what you notice in other people is also what you're going to notice in yourself. So we have to start paying attention to that. If you are always nitpicking on your arms or your thighs, and then you find yourself like seeing a girl and looking right at her arms and her thighs and comparing yourself to that, it's time that we start to reframe that. Does this person look strong? Do they look athletic? Like literally anything else. So we want to think of this as a 3-step process. Eventually, we want to be able to get to the point where this happens naturally, right? We get the trigger, we respond in a better way. So step number 1 is going to be writing down your trigger. So you guys can screenshot this, you can write it down, because honestly, you're going to probably want to like journal about this a little bit. The more that you dive into this, the better that it's going to be, and the better that you're going to stop feeling that trigger every single time it comes up. So knowing the trigger in advance can help catch yourself when your mind defaults to self-sabotage. And this is something that I would do, for example, like with my mom, that she always has to be on like 4 million things about like no bread and no rice, or like I know already that those things are gonna happen. And I know if I go shopping with her, she's gonna mention 7 things about her body or mine, but I know that now. So I'm able to catch that in advance, go into that with a different mentality and not self-sabotage myself and continue to follow the rest of this process. Right? What exactly are you worried about? So when we think about that trigger that the person is saying to you, why did it affect me? What am I worried about? Am I worried about becoming like the person that I was? Am I worried about like going back? Which obviously that's not an option for us anymore. That's only moving forward from here. What exactly are you worried about? And this is something that we can also work with together. Write down an anchor thought that grounds you. So once you get this trigger, we want to just take a breath. You know that this trigger happens. You know that you get triggered by XYZ when you go to dinner with a friend, or like whatever the case may be, you're going to the beach. When this happens, we take a breath and we drop the anchor thoughts, the wins and the truth. So a couple of examples of this are, I can and should be eating this. Somebody comments on your food, you're eating so much. like, you're really gonna eat all of that on my plate, I can and should be eating this. Right, I'm happier now. You're so boring, why are you going to the gym? You have to go to the gym, like, I'm so much happier now, I feel strong, I'm doing all the things, right? I want this for myself and I will work hard, I'm healthier now, I did 400 pounds on a freaking hip thrust or 170 on the squat. That is a great anchor thought. When we start to comment on our body or we look on things and you realize like, holy fuck, I just hit this crazy PR that I've never been able to do in my life. This is an amazing anchor thought. I no longer under fuel. My muscles are my strength. The way that they eat has nothing to do with myself. I love my body. I don't need it to be perfect. I don't put my body through toxic diets anymore, and I don't skip meals. This one was really, really big for me. I found that this was something when I was healing my relationship with food and not skipping meals and not overeating, undereating. Some of my friends would be like fasting in the morning. Like that wasn't a thing for me. And I was like, I understand that they're not eating right now, or I understand that they're not having a snack right now, but I know this is in my plan. And I know this is gonna help me have a better foundation and a better structure. And then eventually end what was like my restricting and binging and kind of going back and forth. So all of these are amazing anchor thoughts. You can use all of them, you can use different ones, but you'll kind of find that you probably will have like the same couple in your head. And lastly, how can we respond to these trigger comments? So obviously if somebody says something to you, what are you gonna say? One, no response is a response, right? It's not always worth your energy or your peace to like do all of the things. We can try to explain ourselves, but it can lead to more triggering. We don't owe an explanation to anyone. Know when you have to draw the line and just stop giving them your energy. Because your family can feel entitled, because whoever can feel entitled and they think they know what's best for you. But honestly, that's not always their response. I talk about my mom a lot, but this is something that I have learned with her. Before, I was like always trying to change her mind. I was always trying to do all the things. I was always trying to defend her, like myself, explain myself. And it got to the point where like now I'm just like, cool. Like what am I gonna say? We've gone through this conversation 70 million times. Cool, you do you, I do me, and I'm gonna be in a great place right now. Ask yourself who has the problem. So why is this person so obsessed with the way that you eat, dress, look, live, like do everything? Why are they so obsessed with you? And oftentimes that's gonna come back to they're just seeing something in you that they want to do, that they can't do, that they're struggling with, right? So what is this person seeing in their body, right? Obviously, we can kind of piece those pieces together. We can respond with abundance. I do this actually very often, especially with friends that they honestly don't really care and it's just like whatever. Tell them about your goals, right? With your partner, this is obviously like super important that they are on the same page, right? With people love the word feel. This was when I feel like I fucking cracked the code with this one. This makes me feel so good. If anybody is trying to change your mind or sway you away from something that makes you feel good, then they're probably somebody that necessarily shouldn't be having any type of your energy, because this makes me feel so good, right? Hey, Nicole, like you need to eat this, or like you just have a piece of cake, or like let's have these fried XYZ, and I'm like, that's not gonna make me feel so good. It's not gonna sit well with me. If you try to force me to eat that, are you telling me that you want me to feel bad later? Right, these are all conversation. Right, ever since I started going to the gym 3 times a week, I just feel so good. I feel so energized, I feel so strong. I also love using the word fresh. Like, no, I'm not in the mood for that. I'm just in the mood right now for something fresh, something with like fruit, something that's a little bit fresher. I'll eat later, right? Telling them that it is a challenge for you. I'm trying the challenge where I'm just not drinking as much. So I'm just gonna tone it down, and I'm really just trying to challenge myself to do this for X amount of time, right? After that question will go away. And another thing is educating. Why are you putting so much effort into your protein? Well, this is why, right? Educating them on it. Again, kind of pick and choose your battles with that one, because not everybody deserves to understand the education side of it. And another way to respond is setting boundaries in your life. We can do simple answers like, I know what's best for you, for me. Thank you, I'm working with a professional. That's it. Like, no, you shouldn't eat this. You should actually do like a million other things. Thank you, I'm working with a professional. Be very firm, say no, say you don't want any, like say, yeah, whatever, like, and you can get to the point where you're just like, please just stop. Like, can we start to draw that boundary if it really gets to that point? Again, with this, trust in yourself. Trust in yourself that you are doing exactly what you should be doing, and affirm yourself a million times if you have to, in order for us to start unlearning that, you know, the carbs are bad for me, that gaining muscle is bad for me, that I have to sit and fit into like a size whatever pant that I had in high school. Trust yourself that everything that you are doing from here on is all about abundance, and you know exactly, not exactly what you're doing all the time, not exactly where you're going, but you have this plan for yourself to be the highest version of yourself, right? So always bring it back to that love for yourself. And again, here is basically what we want to do. Screenshot this. I would recommend journaling for anybody that does. Find these trigger comments, dive into what you're really worried about, and figure out how can you anchor it so that when it happens, you anchor it right away, and you're not trying to figure out like, "Ah, now you're sitting there upset because you haven't naturally developed this process." And that's basically it. Sometimes we can get triggered, but it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. We know and we feel in ourselves that we are doing everything for the reasons of food being love and strength being our ultimate power. And that is it for today. Any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, you're like, oh shit, I gotta talk to my aunt that keeps commenting about whatever at every single family event. Ooh. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share, being something that you maybe just dealt with, a question, or something that might help somebody else? You can feel free to either unmute yourself, or you can, yeah, honestly, just unmute yourself. That'd be the easiest.
I feel like I've been pretty lucky with my social group because the biggest change, Nicole and Maria know this, for me is not drinking as much. That has been a huge challenge, but I like the first couple times I went out and I wasn't drinking, I would get all of those same comments like, "Oh, come on, it's just one," and whatever, you can work it off in the morning. But I noticed like once I stuck firm, people have stopped, like, they don't even ask me anymore. Sometimes I'm like, "Actually, I would like one, like, tonight is my one night of the week." So I feel like I've been really lucky, but I do feel like repetition, just after a while, people get sick of saying the same thing over and over again to you. So I hope people have that same, positive experience.
Yeah, drinking for me was something like my friends, I kind of at the beginning, where like people just pour out shots and I would just be like, no. And usually it's like, oh, I just take one. And like, you just kind of take one. For whatever reason, I started like this no. And then one time somebody was like, Nicole's no is a no. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Everybody thinks my no is a no. That is fantastic. So from there, it kind of got a lot better. But I felt a lot of resistance when it came with my schedule. Why don't you want to hang out? Why don't we want to do this and go out to eat like a Tuesday night? And I'm like, I have to go to the gym. And that's where I felt the most resistance from my friends. But eventually, like you had mentioned, it just kind of goes away. Anybody else? Let's share anything.
I actually experienced something today with my coworker who literally looked at me and said, "You look skinny." And it took me a moment because it's not the first time she's commented on my weight. And in the past, sometimes I say thank you, but I hate saying thank you to it because I firmly believe that we don't comment on other people's bodies. And so instead, I had prepared to say when people comment on my body to say I'm with a personal trainer and I've been routinely lifting weights. And that way I give them a reason for maybe why my body is changing.
Okay, I like that. I like how you had mentioned before, like we have to, at first, sometimes like even a trigger comment, not knowing how to respond or feeling a certain way in that first occasion is normal. But it's about like learning how to respond. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I love pivoting it, and it's almost like completely changing the conversation and talking about strength. like, yeah, like I've just been going to the gym, I've gotten so strong, I can do like XYZ. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden it's a conversation about lifting and getting stronger. So it makes me feel a lot better. I appreciate you sharing that. Anybody else like to share or have any questions?
So I'm new to the program, and very excited to start. And it's kind of my first week after the assessment. But I think for me, I'm nervous to hang out with friends because so much of hanging out revolves around food and where we're gonna eat and what we're gonna eat. And everyone knows that I'm like food obsessed. So I think it's a little of a bit of a challenge, or will like I'll be tested for sure to come up with different activities of like, hey, like instead of going out to dinner, what if we went for a walk, or you know, did something else. And I am a little nervous to hear the responses of like, you should love yourself the way you are, like just you know, because I'm also all about body positivity and all that stuff, but and everyone has different goals, but having that feeling of like having to explain yourself, or it just feels a little awkward.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, like I'm committed to it. So
Yeah, allow that pressure, like you're gonna have to, you gotta just go through it at the beginning. Mentioning your goals, especially if they're like close friends, like why not? Again, if you just mention about how good you've been feeling in the past week of like whatever, they're gonna be like, oh wow, that's like so amazing. Something that I do with my friends is I will be the one to recommend like where we go out to eat. So they'll have a little while ago, my friend was like, oh, let's go out to eat, let's grab dinner. You pick like this like Mexican restaurant that literally nothing looked healthy. And I'm like, what about sushi? And he's like, oh, I'm down for sushi. And I'm like, great, like nobody wants to, well, not nobody, but like people usually don't mind a healthier option. So if you can like just mention somewhere else to go, it's having that same experience, but also like fitting more into your goals and what's gonna make you feel better. Yeah, the walk thing was good.
I have something to add to that too that I do with my friends is, and it goes back to where you said, know what your schedule is and maybe use that as a comment. But if you know what your schedule is, you can always decline to go out and say, hey, I'm busy. Your friends don't know your schedule. You can say you're busy, or I have another event. How about we go for a walk this Saturday? Or how about we meet up and play tennis? And if you give them an option of something that's active and something that, you know, fits into your schedule that you know ahead of time, you can like, you know, fit them in. It helps with, you know, being able to say no without saying no.
Yeah, oh, I like that. I should do that with my parents. My parents think, like, they literally think I'm like the most boring person sometimes. I'm just like, I like to plan ahead and you can't text me 5 minutes before that you wanna do XYZ.
Sometimes jumping ahead of their plans. So like, you know, making sure you're the person scheduling these events, and then yeah, you're getting ahead of them asking you to do something that you're not really that interested in.
I like that. I'm actually gonna use that like ASAP. Cool, I appreciate that. Anybody else, anything that we would like to talk about? Obviously, like throughout this journey too, if things come up at whatever point and you feel like you got tested or like this is new or like I didn't know how to respond, we can have that conversation. But it is something that your whole world feels like tension until everybody around you just realizes this is how she lives her life. She likes to eat healthy, she likes to go to the gym, and then every so often she's eating a sandwich and a cookie and a dessert, and like you don't question her because that's the things that she does. So that's just gonna be our lives, and it's the most badass like thing ever, because we're strong and we eat and we don't have restrictions. Alright, so we'll leave it at that. If you have anything that you would like to talk about, obviously feel free to reach out to me at any point. We will have a conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful night. I will see you all at Chickens.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.